All right, so this is the Michael Sainato handout, and there's a copy of the handout actually posted. So I just want to go over the verbs really quick. So hopefully this will be a little bit quicker than the other one. So, as usual, it's a situation where we're going to let's take a look at the, where the sentences end, right? So the first sentence ends at throughout the United States, right? Second sentence ends, always with the periods, at reading. The following sentence ends at behind the bars. And the next sentence ends at far different. And then the next sentence ends at vocational classes. Hold on a second. And the last sentence ends at the country. Okay, so with the first sentence, let's take a look at it. Now again, all readers read through the verbs. So you want to take a look at the verbs when you guys are translating these into your own words, okay? So it says, an overlooked aspect of the criminal justice system in the United States is the abhorrent literacy rates in prisons throughout the United States, right? So is a verb there, right? Just like we did yesterday, we're gonna put this in yellow, right? So that's our verb. So is our verb. And then notice that there's no other verbs in the sentence, right? This pretty much means that there's only like one idea here. There's only one verb. There's pretty much just one idea. So we know that is by itself. So something is being described as something else. So let's read it again. The overlooked aspect of the criminal justice system in the United States is the abhorrent literacy rates in prisons throughout the United States. So is, right, is telling us that something is being described as the abhorrent literacy rates in the United States throughout. Well, what is the abhorrent literacy rates? The aspect, okay? So we're gonna, just like we did yesterday, we're gonna put it in blue, right? So the aspect is the thing that is the abhorrent literacy rate, right? And it's the aspect of the criminal justice system in the United States. So both of these here, so of the criminal justice system is one. Let me see if I can do this. This is not used to not using a mouse here. So of the criminal justice system is one, and then in the United States, let's see. So I'll do one in, let's see. So of the criminal justice system is one. Okay, you guys can see. Let's try this again. All right, I'm gonna block you for a second. So of the criminal justice system is one. I really missed my classroom. All right, here we go. Of the criminal justice system is one. And we do it like that, and we do it like that. There we go. And in the United States is the other. And so both of those prepositional phrases is giving you some information about the aspect, okay? So keep that in mind. And as well as the fact that the aspect is a noun, right? So as always, what else is giving us information about that noun? Overlooked, right? So the subject is the aspect, right? And then that aspect is being described by the is, right? And then all this stuff that you see there in the italics is giving us more information. Is also giving us more information about that aspect. Okay. And then we're going to come back to the vocabulary in a second. Just wanted to suss out the verbs and the subjects here. So then it says 3 out of 5 people in the U.S. can't read, right? So can't read is an action verb. So let's do that. And conjunction. 85% of offenders have trouble reading, right? So have, right? Have the verb there, right? So it says 85% have something. What do they have? Trouble reading, right? Now, there's 2 verbs here, right? There's the fact that someone can't read, and the other is that they have something, right? So it says 3 out of 5 people. So who can't read? Well, 3 out of 5 people, right? So these people are the subject, right? And 85% of juvenile offenders have trouble reading. The offenders is the subject of that verb. When you're putting this into your own language, right? In the first detail, right? So again, you're not translating everything word for word, but in the first detail, something is being said about that aspect. What is being said about that aspect, right? With the second verb, people can't do something, right? And these other folks, these offenders, have something, right? Okay. So then we move to the third sentence. It says, arming inmates with an education is one of the ways of reducing the rate at which they end up back behind bars. Just make sure you guys can see. Okay. So arming inmates with an education is our verb there, right? Okay. So is our verb there. One of the ways of reducing the rate at which they end up back in bars, right? So end right? So army inmates with an education is, right? So what is, right? What is one of the ways of reducing the rate? Well, education. hold on a second. Blue. So education is one of the ways of reducing the rate at which they end up. Who ends up? They. Now, here's the thing. Let's go back to you up here. No, don't want to do that. Okay, there we go. So it's they end up back behind bars. Now, who ends up? Right? Who ends up back behind bars? You got to think about that first. So Army inmates with an education is one of the ways of reducing the rate in which they. So they being who? Inmates. So the inmates, and so you know what we're going to do? We're going to put that in blue. Just to let you know, there's a connection between they and the inmates. Okay. So reality is far different. Simple one, right? State of being by itself. Right? State of being by itself, meaning that reality, so the subject, we only have one sentence, one noun right there, so obviously that has to be the subject. Right? So reality is being described as far different, right? So the reality is described as far different. Okay. Now, it says just 6% of inmates are in academic classes. Notice I'm going to stop there. Why am I stopping? Because we have the almighty comma there, right? All right. So it says just 6% of inmates are. So are is going to be our verb there, right? And who is? Well, inmates. Inmates are. Right? Now, how many inmates? Well, 6% of those inmates are in academic classes, right? Then is the comma, right? And, so there's a conjunction. It says 5% attend. Attend, which is an action verb, all right? So we got attend, which is an action verb. So we're going to do that. And it's this percentage that attends. Now, technically, just if we want to get parenthetical about this, you know what, we're going to change percent, right? So we're going to highlight that 2% as well, right? 6% are in academic classes and 5% attend vocational classes. Okay? All right. So then finally, we have this idea of this issue. So let's take this idea of is here. Right? Now, it says this issue is. Is, again, is the verb. We only have one thing that could be the subject, which is the issue, right? Is, and then it's being described as rampant. Rampant where? In prisons. In what prisons? Right? Across the country. So again, notice that we got prepositions that gives us more information, right? In prisons gives us more information, right? And then across the country also gives us more information. Right? So this issue is rampant. Rampant is telling us about the issue, right? In prisons is telling us, giving a prepositional information about where it's rampant, right? Because prepositions again tell us where. And then across the country is also telling us where, right? Because across the country, preposition. Okay? All right. All right, so very quickly, we're going to go back to the top and so deal with some of these vocabulary and maybe talk about a couple of inferences that you guys can make from sentence to sentence. So again, make sure that as you're reading, we're constantly making the little micro inferences, right? And we're also sort of making these like micro conclusions, like these little junctures where we just sort of stop and think about what's actually going on, what's actually happening, sort of checking for our understanding before we move forward. Okay? So it says, an overlooked aspect of the criminal justice system in the United States is the abhorrent. So if something is abhorrent, like there's a lot of ways of saying that something is bad, right? But abhorrent is one of those ways, right? It's basically saying that it's a bad thing, right? Or a terrible thing, right? So if something is abhorrent, it's bad, it's terrible. And then again, there's that word illiteracy from the last one, right? So literacy again meaning being able to read, right? And ill being put onto literacy, basically being not being able to read. The rate is the noun there, right? So abhorrent and literacy are both adjectives that describe the rates. And the rate of something is the amount of something that is actually happening, the size of it that's actually happening. All right. So then the next sentence, and again, you have two verbs there, so two ideas. So in the first idea, it says 3 out of 5 U.S. people in the U.S. prisons can't read. Okay. Pretty straightforward there. And the second idea is that 85% of juvenile offenders have trouble reading. Okay. Now, it seems like, oh wow, those are, they're kind of talking about the same people, but they are and then they aren't. So think about that when you're reading that next sentence, right? Now, let's see. Next sentence. And also think about how this relates back to the first sentence. Okay? All right. So then we have the next sentence where it says, arming inmates with an education is one of the ways of reducing the rate at which they end up back behind bars. Right? So technically, and this is I don't want to get too confusing with this. So, but technically, we could have chosen arming, right? Like the state of giving someone guns, or not necessarily guns here, right? Because you're arming not with guns, right? You're arming them with an education, right? So technically the subject is arming, right? But the real point there is the fact that they're pointing towards what? Education, right? So it's being described there. So arming is necessarily sort of giving someone a way of fighting something. And I want to point that out because of the fact that, there's a tone to that this gives a particular tone to that sentence, right? If you're arming inmates with an education, Why would you need to arm them, right? Like, why do you arm someone, And then how does the idea of education, infer back to this idea of arming? Okay, so keep that in mind. It's a small little micro inference that you can make. Basically talking about the tone or the implication that is being made. One of the ways of reducing the rate to reduce something is to make something go down. We talked about what a rate is. Behind bars. Okay. Now, then it says the reality is far different. Okay, so we know what reality is. Reality is, what is actually going on, right? Really think about the micro inference that can be made between this sentence and the previous sentences. Okay? I mean, it's a small sentence, but as we've seen before, even some of the most simplest sentences tend to be packed with a lot of information. Then the next one is 6% of inmates are in academic classes. And again, we stop. Okay. So 6% of inmates. So the percentage are in academic classes. So 6%. That means how many inmates are not in academic classes? And when you read that, you don't read that in isolation, right? So again, unfortunately, you got to do the math with this, right? So if it says 6% of inmates are in academic classes, compare that to the math and the information before it. Right? That's that's going to be a large part of how I'm reading this, in terms of your interpretations. And then it says 5% attend vocational classes. Right? So 5% attend vocational classes. So again, keep that in mind, right? So 6%, 5%. So what does that mean? Right? Attend vocational classes. So vocational, academic would be, English, science, math, like the classes that you guys are taking. Vocational classes would be hands-on classes. So, wood shop, learning how to be a mechanic, all these other types of things. Like home economics, we learn how to cook, those types of things. Okay. So this issue is rampant in prisons across the country. And again, rampant being the fact that it's happening a lot, right? So one of the things you can say is that rampant is an adjective. It's going back to this idea of the rate. Okay. All right. So as always, it's a situation where the first two, in your own words, you're going to translate the first two sentences. And then in your own words, you're going to translate the last, in your own words, you're going to translate, the last four sentences. And I kind of split that up that way in the handout because there's a relationship between those two. In the handout that you guys have, you're just going to translate the whole thing all together, where it says interpretation. But keep in mind that, there's a relationship between the first two sentences and the last four. And then for the micro inference, right? Again, how are all four sentences related to this idea of labor and class? Right? All six sentences related to this idea of labor and class. But then also, how is it related to education? And you can also think about how it's related to taxation as well, right? Because how are taxes related to prisons, right? So how are prisons run? What pays for prisons? All right, so You have cause and effect, reasons and conditions as well. All the different types of relationships that you can find in micro inferences, right? And that will go into the micro inference selection in your submission. So also make sure you hit that turn in button when you get everything done. So as always, I hope you are healthy, and I hope your family is healthy, and take care. Look forward to seeing you guys again.